Hey everybody, David Cristello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow. Really excited to dig into today's content, which is all around workflow traps that keep you small. Let's get things going here in just a minute, but first, let's go ahead and do a check-in. Let me know that you can see me, let me know that you can hear me, and let me know where you are calling in from or tuning in from. I'm based out of a very sunny high 60s, low 70s. It's a bit bizarre. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let me know if you're calling in from the Northeast or somewhere else. Go ahead, type into the chat or question box and let me know that everything is coming in A-OK. And we're going to get started here in just a second. We have an action-packed 30 minutes. Up Q&A. Chat is disabled. Thank you. Yes, go ahead and type into the questions where you're calling in from. Make sure everything is A-OK. We got some people calling in from Florida, Wisconsin. Fantastic. All right, well, hopefully it's warm across the board. Great, couple hand raisers. Great. Dubai, Carolina Beach, Arizona, South Florida. Hopefully all is well in South Florida after massive storm. We have some team members down there. Colorado, Boston. Okay, fantastic. Wow. Very excited to dive into today's session. Let's go ahead and get to it. Like I said, we have a lot of content to cover in about 30 minutes here. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right. So the first place I'm going to start with workflow traps is a firm owner that I remember talking to. That we were working with them a number of years ago. And there's this guy, Blake, which you'll see here on the screen. And Blake, for all intents and purposes, was running a really successful firm. They had scaled their firm. And if you're not a firm owner, if you're a team lead or a department lead, you can kind of contextualize this for you, of course, because it all applies. But Blake really had this challenge of really feeling burned out from the business. He didn't know what to do. He's kind of giving these lowball offers. And he's trying to think, what's next? He's like, I don't really enjoy showing up day to day as much as I used to. I love the community I am in. He was based in Ohio, still is. But I am burning out and I'm not sure what to do. And you know what? I might just sell. Right? He's kind of in a place where he was thinking about it. And I think, so often when we think of workflow traps, one of the symptoms is that you feel like you're about to hit the eject button. That might mean, leaving the department, leaving, being a team lead, selling the firm, selling out your stake in the firm. And all that could be the right decision. But you never want to make that decision when you're down and out or tired or nearly burned out. And that's what workflow traps will do. They'll kind of lead you to a place where you feel like you don't have an escape plan and you leave or sell without any leverage. It's the worst place you can be. Now, in Blake's case, he was able to overcome some of these obstacles, and we're going to talk about it here in a second. So we kind of went from kind of exhausted and stuck and ready to sell for pennies on the dollar to being a place where he was rejuvenated, could grow once again. And the other thing I want to mention is that the I think that one of the real tragedies in our profession is, the majority of firms, whether it's a carve out or full firm acquisition, are sold for less than $1 million, which I don't see any reason why people on today's training can't get to a place where they have an enterprise value of more than $1 million. And I think that'd be something to really be proud of. I think that could create a lot of wealth, and I think that could be really exciting for people listening. And it's achievable as long as you can kind of get through the workflow traps. And one of the big things I want to talk about today is how do you find the right step at the right time? So often, and I'll even put this webinar to some extent in this bucket. You're told the right thing to do, but it may not be the right time to do it at your firm, for your team, for your department. So sometimes we go to conferences, we jump on webinars, we listen to like our Growing Your Firm podcast, and you hear an idea, value-based billing. Oh, we got to do that. We got to do it now. Probably the right thing, may or may not be the right time, right? So, it's really important, and I'm going to try to block and tackle right step at right time. And today in today's training, we're going to walk through kind of a workflow maturity model of kind of phase one, phase two, phase three, and different traps that happen on each one. right? If any of these resonate as I go ahead and you can kind of type into the Q&A and and let me know if this speaks to you. But we'll go in order. Now, some people listening or tuning in, they might look at this and say, well, of course I'm in phase 2, or of course I'm in phase 3. Like, it's really important. I'm going to say this more than once. You can be in more advanced phases, but still struggle from things in the first one. It's not like just because you go from phase 1 to phase 2, you've checked all the boxes. In fact, sometimes we prematurely try to jump into phase 2, and the business or the department only becomes harder to run, and that's because we didn't solve the things in the prior stage. We didn't set the right foundation, so growth becomes harder. We want to figure out a way to, as we grow, things become easier. We get more leverage out of our department, out of our firm, out of what we're offering. All right. So if that makes sense, let me know. Type into the chat. And again, as more questions come up, type them in. So let's first go into phase number 1. All right, 0 to 1. I call this the solopreneur stage. Now you might be thinking, "What? I have a team." And okay, that's fine. Let's just hang out here for a second, right? And so there are typically 2 goals that happen in what I call phase 1. This kind of 0 to 1, right? Which is like, I'm going to try to keep the team as small as humanly possible, and I want to have as big of a salary as humanly possible with as little work as possible. Okay, and that's fine. That's all about cash flow. It's all about cash flow. Or I want to set a foundation to scale revenue so I can build a real asset, right? Both are fine. We've been to many conferences this year. I've talked to some that are in that kind of phase 1 solopreneur esque or intrapreneur. If you're at a larger firm, maybe you're launching like a CAS department or advisor or CFO. You might be in this boat as well. And some people are like, I want to maximize salary, maximize cash flow. That's great. I think a lot of today we're going to focus on scaling revenue to build an asset. Although a lot of the things we talk about will be applicable to both. All right. So in the beginning, your job is to prove the system works. I have the number 0 to 1 here because you're going to go from nothing to something that is repeatable. And that is the job of the founder, of the entrepreneur, of the team lead, to kind of figure out that the system works and it's repeatable. So how do you go from 0, nothing, 1 to baseline repeatability? And what I mean by that is your job, or the job of the kind of the founding team or the founding firm members, is to get the basic workflow to work. So what do I mean by that? You need to have a way to attract leads. You need to have a way to attract those leads to clients. You need to have a consistent system to deliver value to clients. And then you need a way to make sure the clients are retained, that you drive referrals or expansion of services to those clients. Right? So what often happens, again, I'm going to say this over and over and over again. What often happens is maybe you'll get 2 steps out of this. You'll get really good at converting clients and delivery to clients. You're like, great, I'm going to start hiring and hiring and hiring and hiring. Well, guess what? You're not attracting leads. You're crushing your profitability. You're not driving expansion revenue. So you're not seeing a lot of top line growth, and that's very profitable revenue too. But you have great delivery and you have great conversion, right? And so you're kind of you have more team members with more stress, with less profit, and that's where the next stage becomes very stressful. So I can't emphasize it enough. You really want to have something repeatable, and it doesn't have to be complicated. We'll get into it, that you can drive from, somebody who learns about your services to become the client, to receives value from being a client, to can refer or purchase more services for you. What's really, really important here is to document light processes. We're going to get into some traps, but it's like, just, if you just get things out of your head, right? So what do I mean by that? Write it down. Write it down. And if that's not really your jam, then, open up Loom, LOOM.com, record a video of yourself doing it. They actually do auto transcriptions now, or there's a bunch of AI tools that will do transcriptions. You can throw that transcription into ChatGPT and say, make it a documented list, and they will. Or you can do the video and you can type out the list, whatever you want, but it should just be something that is fast to put together, where we'll talk with firms and, they'll give themselves, I don't know, like a month to document something simple. And what that means is, I'm not going to work on it until day 24. And from day 24 to 28, I'm going to work on it a ton. I'm a bigger fan of just set it, we're going to do it this week. We're going to do it end of day today. We're going to do it in the next 30 minutes. How low can we set the bar to just document something across everything? Now, if you don't have a way to attract leads, it's kind of like, you close your eyes and a lead comes on your lap and you're like, that's cool. Okay, we got to figure out a process. There's nothing to document there. You're kind of just wandering around and hoping that a lead falls on your lap, right? And that's not, there's nothing to document there. That's a gap. That's something you'll have to figure out and then create a process around it. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen is hiring before there is something repeatable. You do not want to hire somebody to make something repeatable. You want to learn the baseline process and then hire somebody to help you scale what is working and make it more efficient, right? So it is so critical in this early stage of phase one is that these processes are there, they are repeatable, and they're repeatable before you hire. And like I mentioned, even if you jump into the next stage and you think about other workflow traps, you start to scale up, you either automate or delegate. If you haven't figured out one of these steps, it will bite you, right? And guess what? Not surprisingly, tracking leads is a really big one, right? And you don't have to be fancy with attracting leads. I'm not saying go launch TikTok ads or post 12 times a day on LinkedIn. It could be how show up for networking events or meet with local businesses or attend industry trade shows. There might be something that's already happened. It might be how you collaborate with other departments that brings over leads, right? There might be something there. You just need to make sure it's repeatable and predictable before you move on. All right. So, like I mentioned, you should have a very basic, very simple process for attracting leads. Like I attend X, Y, and Z shows every year. I attend these department meetings. I attend the local luncheons. I attend the business networking thing. Again, nothing against online ads. They can work great. Whatever works for you, just document it as a lightweight process. Converting to clients, this is typically, oh, let's chat. Let me learn more about your business. Let me see what I can do to help you, right? You don't need to go out and buy a 50-page sales manual and say, hey, that's my document. Just try to figure out what's working today. It's typically a version of I sit down with the owner, I ask them what brought them, what got them interested in maybe changing firms or finding a new accountant. I learn about their pain points. I learn about the problems or opportunities going on in their business. I do an audit of their books and I present them services, right? That might be the process, and that's fine. Like I said, it's not about extremely nitty gritty details at this stage. Next one, deliver to clients. Here's your X, Y, and Z deliverable. And then finally, retention, referral, and expansion. Again, it could be as simple as every month you send out a note to your best clients to say, I'd love to catch up. Not all of them, right? You do, 25% here, 25% there. Let's catch up. Love to grab lunch. Love to, whatever it may be, see how business is going. And maybe that's what helps you drive referrals and expansion and retention is just being top of mind and seeing how you can add value through these touch points. Once you have these three things in phase one, again, just document it in a very simple way and validate that it's repeatable. Again, do not hire until something is repeatable. Oh goodness almighty, I've talked to so many firm owners. They're like, I'd love to launch this service. I'd love to get in this industry. You should have some validation that it's going to work, right? Just some validation, right? And granted, maybe there's a 1, 5, 10% time where you can hire somebody and they build it, but I would say there's more fires in that arena than I see successes. So you want to have something that is repeatable. All right. So you might be asking, what about thinking how I need to fix I want to get involved in fixing the profession. How do I make AI my competitive advantage? How do I, monitor new tech changes, the state of PE, this, that? No, stop. I mean, do it if you want to have that as your break. You could go check out a news site. You could go on social media, or you can kind of look at these things. Do not mistake this activity for being what you need to do in the early stages to set up for scale. All right. So, what are the traps? Hiring too soon, hiring too many, not documenting anything basic, or spending too much time documenting. So, let me unpack this. Okay. Hiring too soon, we talked about already. Hiring too soon means I don't have a great process for expanding clients or upselling them on service. I'm going to hire somebody in biz dev to help do that. Well, if you don't know how to do that, it's going to be, frankly, you're going to spend a lot of money and spin your tires a lot before it's going to work out. You should be the first person that goes in and just validates that it can work. Hiring too many, so often we want to throw bodies at the problem. Why do we want to do that? Well, frankly, I think in some cases we get rewarded for doing that. Feels good. Hey, how's the team doing? How many people do you have? It always feels good to say, well, we used to have 6, now we have 10. We used to have 10, now we have 15. You can add more people to the problem, but it typically doesn't solve the problem in this stage. Number 3, not documenting. And again, what I mean by that is just something very basic. In our tool, we work with 1,000+ firms, and a typical service has 5 tasks in it. All right. So just very high level. You can get more detailed within the task and documentation, things like that. Keep it very high level. On the flip side, if you take what is normally a 5-step task and you turn it into a 50-step task, or you're not getting started on documenting because you're trying to figure out what is the perfect way to document everything, that is also a form of procrastination. So just get it down and you will make it better as you go. All right. Last but not least, and let me know if this hits home for anybody, is not setting proper scope for clients. All right. Early on, as you're building a service, as you're building a department, as you're building a firm, you kind of want to just say yes to everything. And you think, well, in the future, we'll cut back. It's very hard to undo. You can undo it. We've interviewed a lot of people on the Growing Your Firm podcast that have kind of been able to peel back a lot of scope creep, optimize their pricing. But you will quickly find that you do need to hire a lot faster than you think, but you don't have the money to hire, but you're working 24/7, and you're probably either not charging enough or you're not controlling the scope for those clients because you want to go above and beyond. You want to be an advisor, all good things. Scope it properly. Do not be afraid of these conversations. You can almost put one of the workflow traps as maybe conflict avoidance with your clients. Maybe that's getting too real on a Tuesday. I don't know. But setting proper scope, so important for this stage because you just want to set a great foundation. I don't know if people saw, but on LinkedIn earlier this morning, I put out this post with Logan Graff, and he launched his firm, and he part of his firm's doing tax, and average price to do a tax return in his area was like $300. Young guy, started his firm. He came out, he charged something like $450 or $500 per return. Depending on who's listening, you might be like, that's a lot, or maybe that's a little. 18 months later, he doubled it to 1,000. The time of the interview, he goes, I really need to bump it up to probably 1,200, maybe 1,500 per individual tax return. Right. So he puts hard guidelines around that scope. And he's been able to scale up without burning out because he puts scope and he prices premium. And I think they go hand in hand, right? I think the right client kind of respects that, understands scope. But I know early on it's very hard because you're just trying to grab momentum any way you can. All right. Phase number 2. This is really about how you start to scale up. How do you scale up? What do you keep? And what do you automate or delegate, right? This is growing to 1 million and beyond. I would argue probably up to 3 to 5 million in this stage of what we've seen. And so the questions are, again, what do you keep? And then what do you automate or delegate? From what we've seen in our community, from what we've done in our Growing Your Firm interviews, our preference is you keep your magic, what I call your magic moment. So maybe you're able to go in and dissect and be the CFO for a number of very, very important clients in an industry cold, right? I would keep those magic moments. Maybe you're extremely good at marketing and sales, right? Fulfillment, you understand, but you get distracted. You want to be closing deals. Great, I've seen that. Maybe you're really good at acquisitions and integrations of those acquisitions, right? We had a gentleman on, Patrick Dykter, right? He started his firm by acquiring, then he grew up through acquisitions. He's at a multi-million-dollar run rate. Marcus Dillon, we just interviewed him. He did something like 18 or 19 transactions over the last 20 years with his firm. He was buying and then he was carving out other ones. He's buying, he's carving out, buying and carving out. That should always be on his plate at this stage, right? It should always be that's one of his magic moments. People that are great at sales, keep that on your plate. That's one of your magic moments. Being great with the clients, being in their board meetings, whatever it is. One of the CAS success stories in our space is Summit CPA with Jody, and they got acquired by Anders, and they reached an 8-figure run rate and beyond, and he was still doing some client advisory work, right? And he was just, I think it was invigorating for him, and it was one of his magical moments where he just knew the market code, and he added so much value. It was obviously a premium service, but he still did it, right? Some of the most famous coaches, um, um, so for example, famous tennis coach taught Serena Williams, taught many top 10 pros. You could still hire him directly to teach you for an hour. I think it's $5,000 per lesson. So you have to pay a lot for it. Or you can go with other instructors that he has at his clinic. And so you can keep your magic moments. Just make sure that you are exceptional at them. Now, if you've grown from nearly nothing to well over 7-figure run rate, you definitely have a magic moment. And if you don't know what that is, ask people that work with you. They'll tell you. They'll tell you. Believe me, it's there, and they can tell you. All right. Now, in terms of automate and delegate. So automate, I look at, and this is probably controversial, I don't know, hiring should be the last option, right? It shouldn't be like, we have a problem, let's go hire somebody. It should be, well, let's think about this. Let's think about this. Is there something to automate here, or should this problem exist at all? Maybe we're automating something for a bad client. Maybe we just need to get rid of the bad client. I don't know. All right. Maybe there is something that we should automate. Calendar bookings, right? Like, when should we schedule a time to come in? There's a million software for that. We can do that. Go ahead and do that. A lot of admin things. You can benefit from that level of automation. Delegation is the other flip side of that. So either automate or delegate in this stage. And then the question is stateside, full-time contractor versus offshore, nearshore. Look, we've talked with so many firms. Some people hire all stateside, all full-time. Other people have a mix. They've definitely seen more people having a mix. Any of these options can work. Any of these options can work. And we don't have any allegiance to any of these kind of staffing vendors, right? So, but I've seen them all work. The main variable for any hiring, any contract, is the bar you set, right? And the expectation you set. So they all can work. All right, but you have to work it. You have to set the expectation. You have to audit and review and look at the output and fine tune the output of that team and make sure that you're holding the team accountable. Okay. And last but not least, as it comes to delegation, you can start with, near shore. That doesn't work. You can move to stateside contractor. That doesn't work. You can do full time. You can have a mixture, right? You can go all offshore and then move full time. You can do, you can evolve your team as your services evolve. Okay. So what are some traps as you build out your team? You don't make it a team responsibility to keep the processes up to date. All right. So often we find the champion, and the champion carries all the weight of making sure the workflow makes sense, making sure things are documented, or making sure things are up to date. Everything's on their shoulder. And they constantly, and because they typically have the personality type where they always say, sure, I'll take it on. Yeah, sure, I can do it. Yeah, give me more. Right. This starts to bury them, and something starts to fall through the cracks. Right. Make it a team responsibility. The team owns the system with you. This is a co-ownership of the process. Okay, this is a core part of their job, is to make the playbook, to make the process better. If they learn something about the client, update the system with the information about that client. Okay. If they learn something about the process, something's tweaked in the form, something's tweaked in the service, the team should be updating it. Now you have the choice. The team can just update it and let you know they've updated it, or they can request an update from you and then you can approve it and kind of go through it. It's up to you. Or they can just just run with it. Hey, it's your clients, it's your thing. Make sure it gets done. Make sure clients are happy. Doesn't matter to me. You can control the threshold between those kind of 3 avenues that you can go down. Trap in this stage is, again, you hire too soon for something that hasn't been working. See this all the time in marketing sales. Oh, we need to figure out marketing. Let's hire a bunch of people to figure out marketing. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work. Most of the time, it doesn't work. You should have some momentum here. Maybe it's a drip. Maybe you want it to be like an avalanche of new clients and leads and things like that. But there has to be something. There has to be something working. It is so hard. It needs so much time, so much investment, and typically people from the outside coming in, they don't know your firm, they don't know your clients like you do. You need to have something there that's working. You do not update processes as the team learns about the client and gains more context from the client. You have to be updating these things. You forgot the client experience as part of the process. As part of the process. So you kind of set out this detailed list, but you haven't thought, how is the client experiencing this service? If you're not sure, you can do two things. One, think from the perspective of the client. Just sit back. So I just dropped everything to you virtually or in person. Now what? Do I know what's next? Do I know who's working on it? Do I know when I should receive some sort of follow-up? Once it's complete, how do I know it's complete? Um, do we do a review? Do we do a review call? Um, how do I know all the services that are being offered? What package am I on? Everything, right? So what is the client experiencing as they do business with your firm? And then last but not least, you do not set checks and balances to work only on relevant work. You can have the tyranny of fires happening all the time. As you hire, as you bring on more team members, more fires will surface. Doesn't mean they're always the top priority. All right. Last but not least, I'll leave this one on the screen while I clear my. And again, I always leave the biggest ones for the end. You scale with clients you don't like, you charge too little, and you don't control scope. Right? So no amount of tinkering with process will fix this. And I know that's ironic coming from a workflow company. We can help you become more efficient, transparent, collaborative on your work. But as you scale up, we hope that you're scaling up the work that you love and the work that you really want to be doing and the thing that really ignites your team and your firm and where you really feel like you could be the best at and be paid the best. All right. Let's go into phase 3. We're wrapping up. I know we only got about 5 minutes, but you have questions, go ahead and let me know. Final model is really kind of scaling up to 10 million and beyond. Now, your magic moment will need to evolve, and it will need to be about growing and building a true leadership team. We've seen a couple things happen at this phase. One of two things happen. One, the original operator is like, I'm good. We're going to bring in professional CEO. We're going to sell to PE. They'll bring in a CEO. Or, you know what? I want to double down and I want to learn how to become great at building leadership teams. True leadership team. You can retain some of your original tasks if they are around thought leadership. We see this all the time where you're speaking at conferences, trade shows, putting out different content. You can make sure that your department or firm is aligned with the goals, the performance bar, how you hire, how you fire, how you demote and promote. I mean, that's really culture, right? Is really around some, large portion of culture is how you enact through your performance reviews, and through your incentives, and through your promotions, demotions, and offboarding folks. And if you are, the founder, if you're the entrepreneur, or like I said, there's many entrepreneurs at larger corporations, at larger firms. You might go back into your 0 to 1 work. All right, so maybe you get to 10 million. We almost always see somebody in an operations role, a COO, director of operations, and then that person that scaled up the firm, whether it's the founder or somebody just took it from 100K, 500K to nearly 10 million, they might go back into building mode and they might think about new acquisition channels. They might think about M&A. They might build out the infrastructure for that. They might build out the infrastructure for launching new niches or services or tech. I mentioned Summit before with Anders. Essentially, Anders bought Summit, and now what are they doing? Summit was only in, I believe it was digital agencies. And they're saying, you guys did a great job with digital agencies. We need you to scale up with digital agencies. Now we want you to rinse, repeat with other verticals. Right? You don't need to sell out to PE, although if you want to, great, that's fine. No worries on my end. If you don't want to do that, you can still enact some of their playbook and say, look, I want to launch these and we're going to invest in building these out. All right, some traps before we wrap up, and believe we only have 1 or 2 minutes for questions, but go ahead and type them in. If I can't get to them, I will follow up via email. Some traps at this scale. The team believes that the process is the same thing as the outcome for the client. So they might be really, really happy. Hey, process is documented. The process is great. The process is wonderful. We audited it. We edited it. We updated it 22 times this month. It's great. Is it benefiting the client? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, we're not going to get a gold star unless it's doing something for the client, unless it's doing something for the firm. Is it improving margins? Is it improving impact for the client? Are our clients having better outcomes? Sometimes we get so fixated on the process, we lose sight of the client. Other trap is you're not editing or removing processes enough. So there's so many moving parts on this sometimes that on the flip side, you let things linger and you just say, we're doing it this way because we've always done it this way. And then last but not least, you don't realize that your firm, your department has become as much of a product as the services you're providing. What do I mean by that? How you hire, how you manage the team, the values you set for that team. That is all something internally that staff is buying into. And as you grow, we're talking, at least dozens of people on the team. Of course, it could be hundreds or beyond that. And the retention and development of that team is as very much a product as what you're delivering to your clients, and both need to be treated with almost its own kind of roadmap. All right. Having said that, I know that was a fast and furious 30 minutes. We went through a lot of content. I'm going to take a look at the Q&A and let me know what has landed for you. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. And let me know if there's any more questions that have come up. I will say, we didn't get to talk a lot about Jetpack Workflow. We always get questions about Jetpack Workflow. If you're a current Jetpack Workflow customer and you want a best practice call, or if you're interested in how Jetpack Workflow can help you standardize your work, automate the recurrence, and set visibility for scale, you can always go to jetpackworkflow.com/schedule-demo. Book a time with myself or somebody on our team. If you're a Jetpack customer and if you have questions about the product, you want best practice calls, reach out to us. If you're not familiar with the platform and want to learn more, go ahead and feel free to reach out to us as well. I know we're a bit over time, but I appreciate everybody's attendance today. Got some people said totally agree. I think of some of the things about the scope questions. As always, if we could be of service to you, do not hesitate to reach out, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thanks so much.